Hello students, I am here with another video from class 10th NCERT book, and the name of the chapter is Our Environment. So this is again a new chapter from your NCERT book of class 10th, and as this name suggests, Our Environment. So we'll study about the complete picture of our environment. Means our environment consists of what all things, and then how we need to use it, and then how we are using it, and how many these of the resources which are present there are going to be utilized, and how we are saving it. Okay, so we are going to discuss many things about our environment. So according to your NCERT book, what all topics which are to be covered in this lesson are. So let's go on to the first slide that shows us the topics which are to be covered in this lesson. So the topics which are there in the lesson is, first of all, I'll introduce you with the lesson. So after the introduction, I'll give you about the terms which are related with the environment. That is, the first important term is this ecosystem. Then after that, we will discuss about the food chain. Then we'll discuss about the food web, and after that, how is the energy being transferred in this food chain and the food web, that is the flow of energy. Then in that we are going to include the energy pyramids and number pyramids, okay, and many other pyramids are there which we are going to study in this part. Okay, then we are going to see the environmental problems which are related to the which are related with the use of the environmental resources. Okay, then lastly we are going to study about the topic of ozone layer, where we are going to study how is this ozone layer formed, where is it present, and then how is the degradation of ozone layer is happening, and what are the consequences of these types of activities which are to be done, which are being done nowadays. Okay, so let us go on to the first topic, that is the introduction of this chapter. Means it is one of the most important topic that I feel that the this topic which means the lesson which is to be introduced to the students. Okay, so as it is a very common term, our environment, everybody has heard some or the other times, and nowadays we are talking about our environment in a very at a very vast scale, or you should say that we are talking about the problems, the things which are present in the environment. We are concerned about the environment and how to save it. Okay, now why everybody is talking about the environment and what is so important about it, let us find out in this chapter. So as usual, I'll just go through a quick mind map of this chapter, which is going to tell you about the connections between the topics which I previously discussed, which is to be covered in this chapter. Okay, so the mind map says our environment is having so many important things, like see here, the environment is going to represent the components of ecosystem. Then in the components of ecosystem, we need to study about the two types of ecosystem, that is the natural ecosystem and the artificial ecosystem. So in natural ecosystem means we will study about different types of natural ecosystems, such as the forest ecosystem, the grassland ecosystem, okay, then terrestrial, aquatic and pond ecosystem. Then we'll finally move on to this artificial ecosystem, where we need to study about certain artificial ecosystems like crop field, or and then garden or aquarium. Okay, so all these are the man-made ecosystems which we need to think over it. Okay, next we'll study about the components, that is the biotic and abiotic components, because of which this ecosystem is made up of, or our environment mainly is made up of these two components, that is the biotic as well as abiotic component. Okay, now what do you mean by biotic component and what do you mean by abiotic components? So it is a very common term which might be heard by you all, that biotic component of a ecosystem is known biotic component of an ecosystem is the living feature, the living creatures which are present in the environment. Okay, and then we'll move on to the abiotic component, that is the non-living component which are there in the ecosystem and in our environment. Okay, then after that we'll study about the food chain and the food web. How is this ecosystem maintaining the energy? We are going to study with the help of this food chain and the food web. Okay, so in this food chain and in the food web we will study about the different trophic levels. How is this food chain made up of? What do you mean by trophic levels? Then first of, what is the meaning of the consumers, producers and the decomposers? Then where is this, why is this primary consumer written, tertiary consumer written and secondary consumer written? Okay, so here as you can see that the trophic levels might be certain steps of the food chain formation or the food web formation. Okay, then it could be made into different ways, like it could be from start from first trophic level, then it might move to the second trophic level, then third trophic level. Okay, similarly there might be certain animals which will be present in at each and every level of this food chain. Okay, and it is going to form, when many food chains are there, it is going to form a food web. Okay, so all these are the very basic topics which we are studying from our lower classes also, and here also the concept will remain same, whether it is being taught in class 8th, it is being taught in class 10th. Okay, so the concept of the food chain and the food web remains same. Okay, once we are talking about our environment or we are talking about the ecosystem, then we will definitely move on to how is the energy being regulated over there in the ecosystems, in the various types of ecosystem. Okay, and then we'll study about the types of waste which is being produced in the ecosystem, means what kind of waste we are generating and how is this going to affect the ecosystem, and if we are not going to manage it, how we need to manage it is are the various steps like landfills, recycling, sewage treatment, incineration and use of disposable paper cups. Okay, now next will be about the effects of waste which is generated. The waste is going to be generated as we are using the resources. Now once they are being generated, whether they are being utilized or whether they are being managed or not, we need to study there. And what are the effects of these waste management, means waste generation, is that we will see that in the form of ozone depletion, we are going to see in the form of problems of waste disposal. Okay, then we will study about the types of waste also, like biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste. Okay, so all these are the very common terms which are very means the concept remains same. I must say that biodegradable wastes are those waste which will be biodegraded or they will be decomposed by the microorganisms, whereas non-biodegradable wastes are those wastes which are not going to be decomposed by the biotic factors, such as they could be they are not degenerated with the help of the microorganisms. Okay, so all these are the types of the ways by which the environment is going to generate the waste, and how we are going to manage, means how we are only generating these types of waste and how we are going to manage. If we are not going to manage this, it is definitely going to destroy our environment. Okay, so we'll go on to these topics in details in this chapter. Okay, so we'll start with the first topic, that is the introduction of this chapter. Okay children, so here I'm the very first thing which comes in your mind is the word environment. So this environment is a very important term in aspect of human beings, as we all are the living creatures, and they are the very we all need this environment at each and every part of our life. Okay, so why this is so important? So this topic is being taken up from your NCERT book itself, that we have heard about the word environment often being used in on our television, in newspapers and by the people around us. Now why we are using this word environment? Because environment itself tells us about that we are just talking about all the surrounding, means we are talking about our surrounding. Environment means we are talking about the surrounding where we live, what we eat, where we are, means where we are residing. Okay, so all these things comes under the environment. Fine. So this is a very basic and a very important term which is directly and indirectly related with our life. So here what is being used in the televisions and the newspapers and by the people around us. Okay, and even our elders also tells us about that environment is not what it was to be earlier. Okay, now environment, why we are talking about in the same manner that our elders are saying that whatever environment was there present in the in earlier, it is not like that. What has been changed in our environment, it is a thing to means it is a topic for thinking. Okay, so once we need to understand our environment. Okay, so what all things are present, why it is being said that our environment has changed, why our environment has changed, let's find out. Okay, so our elders tells us that environment is not what it was used to be earlier. Others say that we should work in an healthy environment. Now what all environment we are talking about, we are just taking these issues, we are talking about the same word in different manners. Okay, one environment is used here by our elders which say that the people say that environment is not what was being earlier. Okay, and we talk that we should work in a very healthy environment. Okay, and global summits involving the development and involving the developed and the developing countries are regularly held to discuss the environmental issues. Now here we need to understand that the word environment which is being used, okay, which is being used in the three aspect. One is being used in the aspect of our elders. Other environment is used in the case of workplace or in the case of our work, and the last environment is used in the form of the environmental issues. Now we need to understand what we are talking about. So according to our elders, we are talking about the time which is not like the same, means we are living in an age of technology. Earlier so much so technologies were not present, we were very much directly related with the nature, we were directly related to the nature, and nowadays we are not so much directly related with our with the nature, we are not directly related with the earth. Okay, so now things have changed, the time has changed. Okay, so here the elders are talking about the time related environment. Okay, next was our workplace environment, means we should always live in an healthy environment. Why we should live in an healthy environment? As in class 9th you might have studied about why in the chapter why do we fall ill, what is the meaning of the word health. So what is the meaning of health according to the class 9th top means class 9th concept, or I must say according to the definition of health or healthy means you are physically and mentally fit. Means if you are living in an environment which is not very fit, which is not very fine, which is not being used, means which is not working according to our needs, it means that we are not working in an we are working in an unhealthy environment. Okay, now next environment which we are talking about is the environmental issues, means we need to talk about the components of the environment, means the physical and the chemical components, the biotic and abiotic factors which are present in the environment, we are talking about it. Okay, so this is directly related with the trees, ponds, lakes, rivers, mountains, soil. Okay, so all these are the environmental components, and we are going to study about these components of environment and their interaction with each other in this chapter. Okay, so this introduction is sufficient enough to tell you about what we are going to study in this chapter in detail. So that will be the environmental issues, that will be the environmental problems, as well as the environment. First we'll understand what is the what components are present. Okay, components of environment, and then we are going to study about the issues which are related with the environmental problems and how to solve them to save our environment. Okay, now all these things are related directly with our mother earth. Why we need to study now? I think you all might have understood why this chapter is so important and why we are talking about in this environment, because if there is no environment means we are also not going to live at all, as the source of our life, that is water, air, oxygen, all these are only the gift of our nature. It is the gift of our environment. Now if we will not talk about the environment, then it means that it is very difficult for us to live. Okay, so environment is the sum total of all the plants and animals. Okay, so environment is the sum total of the plants as well as animals and the microorganisms. Now why we are what does the definition of the environment says? The definition of the environment says that it is the sum total. Why sum total? It is going to take the total things, means it is going to take all the things, all the components which are present all around us. Okay, what all things are present around us is going to constitute our environment. Now if we are taking the total things, all the things means living as well as non-living things, both are going to come under this topic. That is why all the plants, animals and microorganisms like biotic as well as abiotic factors are present, non-living factors are present, non-living components are present. So all these are going to constitute our environment. Okay, now I can definitely say that from this line you can understand that the two major components of environment are, what are these two major components? One is the biotic component, another one is the abiotic component of the environment. So these are the components of environment. Okay, now living beings always interact with each other as well as with the non-living things in the environment. Okay, now this is saying that the biotic and the abiotic factor has the relationship between each other. Now what kind of relationship is it present between these biotic and abiotic factors? Now what do you mean by biotic factor and the abiotic factor? It's very easy. Biotic means it is living, and abiotic means it is non-living components. Now what are the non-living components? The air, water, all these are the non-living components, whereas the living components means that organisms, the animals, the plants, the microorganisms, the bacteria, all these are the living components of any ecosystem. Okay, so that is about the components of ecosystem. So now we need to establish a relationship between the interaction between these living and non-living components. Now how are these living as well as non-living components going to means they are going to be interacting? So as you could see that we are living, we need to have food, we need to breathe air. So air is a non-living component, means air is a abiotic component, air is abiotic. Okay, and the living beings are biotic components. So if we need to live, we need to breathe air, we need to breathe oxygen. So oxygen here is a biotic component, and living beings, the animals and the human beings which take up the oxygen, they are the living components. Okay, so non-living or the biotic components. Now we can easily say that there is a relationship between the biotic as well as abiotic component of the nature, means environment. Okay, now if we think about water, we need to drink water also. So there is an interaction between the living as well as non-living components. So water is an abiotic factor, whereas living beings, the animals and the plants all require water. Plant require water for photosynthesis, we require water for our uh, quenching our thirst, even thirst, even we need to take care if of our body, because our body is made up of 75 or 95, you could say. It is very much made, 3/4 of water is only present in our body. Okay, so we require water for each and every purpose. Okay, if it is so all these are the ways by which you could establish a relationship between the biotic as well as abiotic components of the atmosphere, I mean environment. Okay, so living see, environment consists of a mixture of gases and the particles, including nitrogen, carbon and water. As I was just telling you about the atmosphere, here also this environment also contains atmosphere. Now atmosphere is nothing but it is just the mixture of gases which is present all around the earth, so that it gets protected, so that we get a proper temperature, we get a proper temperature, so that the life is possible on the earth. Okay, so this environment is a mixture of gases, the nitrogen, the carbon and the oxygen and the water. Fine. Now nitrogen, carbon, oxygen, water, all these change from one form to the another form in a separate biogeochemical cycle. Okay, now this is again one of the most, it is a very broad topic, that is biogeochemical cycles. Now what are these biogeochemical cycles? I'll just give a small concept over here, and then we'll go on in detail when we are going to further proceed in this lesson. So environment, when it is consisting of the mixture of gases, from where are these gases coming? They are just coming from the environment. Once they are coming from the environment, they need to change from one form to another form. Okay, now once they are changing from one form to another form, they are changing in a cyclic manner, means once they are over, again they are going to come back. For example, if we are talking about nitrogen, so this nitrogen is going to be converted into various forms with the help of nitrogen cycle. Okay, now if we talk about water, so this water is going to circulate in the nature, in the environment, with the help of water cycle. Okay, so this one is most easiest thing to explain and to understand also. That is why I must take this example only. I'll not go in detail of this nitrogen cycle. I'll just tell you about all these cycles in the next part of the chapter. Okay, when we will study about these biogeochemical cycles. And I think in 9th class also you might have studied about some of the basic concept of these biogeochemical cycle, where nitrogen cycle was definitely there in the chapter. Okay, so you can recall it from there only, but I'll tell you in details also in the next part. So this water cycle is going to circulate the water from one form to the another form. Okay, so once the water evaporates, it comes back in the form of it is going to in the atmosphere in the form of water vapor. Then it is going to condense in the form of clouds, and if water is much more laden in the clouds, it is going to be precipitated in the form of precipitation. Okay, now here only the biogeochemical cycle is a pathway by which the chemical substances moves through biotic and abiotic component of the environment. Now biogeochemical cycle, biogeochemical is again a long word, as I always explain. So here, what is the meaning of this word biogeochemical? Okay, so this biogeochemical means it is related with the living thing. Okay, it is related with the living thing, and then it is related with the, means it is related with the earth, as well as it is also related with the biotic, means it is also related with the components which is related with the chemicals. Okay, it is related with the gases, it is related with other chemicals. Okay, so this was about the biogeochemical cycle. Okay, so this is again it's very interesting to study all these processes. So here bio stands for life or living, then geo stands for the earth or the soil, and chemicals, you all know, chemicals are chemicals means they are just based upon the chemical components, the things which are related with the gases structure, or they could be any other chemical. Okay, so here you could say that the life means it is the biotic form, and the earth is an abiotic abiotic form. Okay, now if we talk about biotic, we can say that this biogeochemical cycle is a pathway from where the chemicals are going to move in between these biotic as well as abiotic components. Okay, so it's very easy that biogeochemical cycle are the only pathways by which the living and the non-living things are going to interact. Okay, either we are going to directly interact. Once water is not formed in the atmosphere, then how could we interact with the water, and how could we use that water in the form of the abiotic factor? Okay, so here one biogeochemical cycle is given. It's that water cycle. I'll just take a simple biogeochemical cycle. That is, the water cycle is, to some extent it is also a biogeochemical cycle, where water is going to evaporate, then it is going to be converted in the form of clouds, and again it is going to precipitate, and again it is going to come back in the nature. Okay, so here carbon dioxide cycle is also running, nitrogen cycle is also running. Okay, so many things are there, so many types of biogeochemical cycles are running in the nature simultaneously at the same time. Okay, so here it is saying that their carbon dioxide cycle is running, means carbon dioxide is again an abiotic component which is going to interact with the plants. Why it is going to interact with the plants? Because plant needs carbon dioxide for the formation of, for the function of the photosynthesis. Okay, so this was about the biogeochemical cycle, how they are a part of our life. Okay, similarly here fossil fuels are there, carbon cycle is going on, water cycle is going on, nitrogen cycle is going on. So many minerals are formed just because of these biogeochemical cycles, and biogeochemical cycle are the main interaction between the biotic and the abiotic components. Okay, so biotic and abiotic components are going to interact with each other just because of this biogeochemical cycle. Okay, just keep this thing in mind, that biogeochemical cycle are the part of, it is a part of our ecosystem, and we cannot ignore these things, this biogeochemical cycle from our environment. Okay, now there are some more characteristics of our environment. As I told you that it is related with the abiotic and the biotic components. Now if we talk about the second part of second important thing of the environment is the ecosystem. Now what is the meaning of this word ecosystem? Okay, ecosystem, the full form of this word ecosystem is, it means that it is the ecological system. Now what do you mean by the word system? Now we will talk about this in detail in the next class. I just wanted to introduce the term ecosystem. Okay, so here the next topic, which is a very important one, is the ecosystem. Okay, now what do you mean by the word system? What is the meaning of this word? So system means it is something which is related with the different levels of people, different people working together. Okay, so they are working in a synchronized manner, means we are somebody is ordering and then somebody is listening to the orders. Like there is a system in your school also. You cannot just come and sit in any class, you cannot come and sit with any children, or any teacher could come and teach in your class. It's not like that. There is a system, there is some systematic way, there are steps which are related with your class. Okay, now if we talk about in nature also, there could be the ecosystem which is running. So ecosystems means it is the ecological system, it is the natural system, it is a system of your environment where the abiotic and biotic components are present. They are going to interact with each other, and how they are going to help each other, how they are related with each other, we are going to study in this topic of ecosystem, which is a very vast topic where we could understand that ecosystems are of different types. Natural ecosystem is there, artificial ecosystem is there. Okay, so we'll just go on to this topic in details in the next class, children. Okay, so today we have seen the topic of environment. That environment is a very important part where we live in, we live with the living as well as non-living component, that is the biotic and abiotic components such as air, water, forest, wildlife, animals, then plants, many other things. Okay, and then we are also interacting with the non-living things, and this there is a continuous interaction between living as well as non-living components, which we will study under the process of which will study under the heading of the ecosystem in the next class. Okay, and we also discuss something about the biogeochemical cycles, children. Okay, so that is all for today's video, children. I'll meet you all in the next video with the next topic to be discussed. Thank you for watching.